I'm Elizabeth at A Literary Princess, and today I'm doing Victorian literature for beginners. This video was requested by Amy, so I hope you find something on here that interests you. So what do I mean by Victorian literature for beginners? When I was going through trying to figure out what to recommend, I was looking for, I guess 3 things. First, on the shorter side. So I'm not recommending any 800-page novels here, because I'm not a jerk. Because obviously shorter things are easier to get into. Second would be writing that is not extremely dense. So there's nothing like George Eliot on here. I would not do that to you. If you were a beginner, I would barely do that to myself sometimes. So things that feel readable to a modern audience. And then 3 books that didn't require a whole lot of historical knowledge about the Victorian era, or if they do, they provide it for you. So let's jump right in. The first 2 I'm going to recommend are Findicicle Gothic novels. So Findicicle means I don't even know if that's how you actually pronounce it, because I don't remember any of my French, but it means the end of the century. So these are late 80s and the 90s, I think. I don't actually remember the publication dates on either of these, but I know they're toward the end. So the first one I'm recommending is extremely short. It is actually a novella. This is The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. I mean, it's like 70 pages, honestly. This actually has other stories in it. Yeah, so my copy has exactly 70 pages for Jekyll and Hyde. It is very short, it's very fast-paced, it's easy to read for the most part, and you don't need a whole lot of knowledge about the Victorian era. This is just gothic, kind of mystery, good time, nice and short, nice and sweet. And there's so much about Jekyll and Hyde in our modern media that you kind of already have some context for the book. All right, and then next up, very similarly, is Dracula by Bram Stoker. Now, this is a longer one, I will say that. My copy is like 400 pages. However, currently going on is something called Dracula Daily, which is sending you a piece of Dracula every day. Well, not every day, but in your email. So Dracula is told through a series of journal entries, letters, and other things like that. So a lot of them are dated. So what Dracula Daily is doing is they are sending you the pieces of the novel on the date they were written, in the novel. So you're getting Jonathan Harker's journal entries as they go, and then letters between Mina and Lucy, cuttings from newspapers, more journals of various characters. So it's a very interesting way of reading the book, and I think it makes it very accessible to people who are just starting with Victorian classics. So I'm going to leave a link in the description box for Dracula Daily. I am subscribed to it, but I'm not actually reading it because I need to do a really quick read through and later this summer, and I don't have time to do it that way. But because it's gonna go until November, I think, maybe October. I don't remember when definitely into October. So I don't have time for that, unfortunately, but I think this is a great way to get started with it. So again, I'll leave the link down below. People on Tumblr are absolutely obsessed with it right now. And with good reason. I think it's a great idea. All right, so next up is what I consider, this is on every Victorian literature for beginners list, and there is a reason, and that's because it's good for beginners. This is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. This is such a readable novel. There are classics that are just dense and hard to read, and the language is just what is this? Charlotte Bronte feels very modern in her writing. It's a first-person narrator. I'm not going to say it's fun. It's kind of fun. it can be fun. There are some very serious parts, but there's also just some really exciting and creepy and great parts. Jane as a narrator is very conversational. She speaks to the reader. And I just think this is a really good one to start off with because of how it's written, but also, again, it's something that is kind of in our culture a lot. There's a lot of film adaptations, so you have some context for it. Although I would actually suggest reading the book before watching a film adaptation, because in the film adaptations, you miss out on Jane's narrative voice, and it's just so great, and I love it. Yeah. All right, so these next two are sensation novels from the 60s. The first one is The Moonstone by Wilkie Collins, and sensation fiction is just fun. It doesn't take itself seriously. It's just a good time. It's kind of ridiculous, it's melodramatic, and the authors are running with that. So The Moonstone I have talked about before in another video. It deals with this gem that is given as a birthday present in this English country home, and then it goes missing. So we're trying to figure out what happened, who stole the gem, where did it go? We have multiple different narrators. The main one is Gabriel Betteredge, and he is amazing. Speaking of great narrative voices, he's amazing. And it's just a good time. You don't need a whole lot of knowledge, historically speaking. You don't need to really focus super hard and pick apart things. This is just a fun mystery, and it's great. All right, and then we have a sensation novel written by a woman. This is Lady Audley's Secret by Mary Elizabeth Braddon. Braddon? I have no idea. Anyway, so this deals with a woman named Lady Audley who has just been married to Sir Audley. And there's some sketchy things going on, and I don't remember if it's his son or who it is that is investigating, but he begins investigating into things, and it's a mystery. It's a mystery. We're trying to figure out, okay, what is going on here? There is all kinds of craziness in here. Buildings burning down, murder that might not be murder. It's great. It's just, again, it's fun. It doesn't take itself seriously at all. And Braddon is actually parodying a lot of Victorian staples, so it's kind of funny. All right, next up, I have one that I don't really have a category for. I just think this is a good book for beginners. This is Jill by Amy Dillwyn. This deals with a young woman named Jill who is rich, but her stepmother is awful, so she runs away from home and becomes a lady's maid to this girl named Kitty, who she ends up falling in love with, and they go on adventures on the continent. And it's a good time. It doesn't take itself super seriously. It's very easy to read. It's short. It's even in several ways, it's kind of episodic. Like there's certain parts that are like their adventure on Corsica is kind of, I don't remember if it's one chapter or two chapters, and then there's this part where she is in a hospital and some stuff happens there. So it is a cohesive story and a journey, but there are little episodic parts that I think help with making it more accessible. And also Dillwyn's just a really good writer and not complex at all, like in the sense of dense writing. It's very easy to follow, easy to understand. It's a good time. Jill's a very interesting character. So the next two are by the same author, Charles Dickens. He's going to come up on any Victorian list, of course. And so the two that I would suggest starting with for him would be A Christmas Carol, which I actually don't have a physical copy of. I've just always read it online. But So we all know this story. It's so ingrained in our culture, particularly around Christmas, naturally. And that's why it's a good place to start, because you already know the story. You know the basics, and now you're just going into the details and seeing, okay, what else is this about? So I think that's a really good way to jump into Victorian literature. And then the second one is kind of similar. Now, this is on the longer side, and you're going to look at my edition and be like, that's huge, but it's just a mass market paperback. And this is Oliver Twist. So this is actually on the shorter side for Dickens novels. Again, this is a 500-page one, but it's a mass market paperback. It's not actually that long. It's, I believe, his first real novel. So he's just starting out as a novelist. He's not really trying anything too crazy like he does in something like Bleak House. And again, it's a story that we kind of have in our culture. Like, everyone knows, please, sir, I want some more. So, you know, you have that base knowledge there. There is a lot of social commentary on here, but I think Dickens provides you with the information that you need to know about it. And anything that he doesn't is usually going to be found in the footnotes if you get a good edition. I mean, this is just a Barnes & Noble classic, and even this has pretty good endnotes. So yeah. And again, there's a lot of film adaptations of this, and I do find it quite helpful to start with a film adaptation and then read the book, or read the book then watch a film adaptation, because it just helps you visualize what's going on. Any parts of the book that are confusing, the movie can kind of help clarify. So I think that's a good way to get started. All right, and then these last ones are Sherlock Holmes by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. These were, of course, going to come up. So there's a ton of these. There are, I think, 4 novels, and then I don't even know how many short stories. This is a collection of 22, but there are a ridiculous number. So again, part of our culture that we all know, there's so many adaptations. Everyone's heard of Sherlock Holmes. So if you're looking for a place to start within Sherlock Holmes for the novels, I would actually say don't start with A Study in Scarlet, because there's this, half of the novel is like about weird Mormons in America. But the best one of the novels is The Hound of the Baskervilles. And you don't need to read these in order, which is kind of the beauty of them. Like, sure, in A Study in Scarlet, you get to see how Holmes and Watson become friends and flatmates, but you don't need that to understand The Hound of the Baskervilles. And this is by far the best of the novels that he's written with Sherlock Holmes. Honestly, this is so fun. It's gothic, it's creepy, fast-paced, nice and short, and just a good time. And then, of course, we have the short stories. Again, you can kind of start anywhere with these, except don't start with The Final Problem, because that's just a bad idea. Or the, what's the other one? The Adventure of the Empty House. So don't start with The Final Problem or The Adventure of the Empty House. You kind of need those two together, and I would say read a few stories before going to The Final Problem, and then read The Empty House. But let's see. Some of my favorites are Scandal in Bohemia, which has the famous Irene Adler. The Adventure of the Speckled Band was quite good. Is it Copper Beaches that I really liked? Yes, I liked The Adventures of the Copper Beaches. I mean, all of them are pretty good. Some are better than others, but you know. Yeah, so those are just a few of my personal favorites. And I haven't even read all these. Oh, the Musgrave Ritual is really interesting. It's just, that's an interesting one. I mean, they're all quite interesting. And they're fun, they're short, they're easy. It's just a good time. And that's really what you want when you're reading a book. You want a good time, for the most part, unless you're in a PhD program like me, and then you just want to suffer, maybe. But, you know, there's also kind of the hope that you'll have a good time occasionally. So anyway, these are my recommendations for beginners to Victorian fiction. I hope that you find something in here that suits your needs and that you enjoy. Let me know down in the comments below, have you read any of these? What do you think of them? What do you think is a good place to start with Victorian literature? It has been great chatting with you all. I will see you soon. Bye.